Good morning. Today we're looking at energy consumption. Okay, so rather than talking about it in terms of nutrition, that is a form of energy. Now we look at the very last exercise for this topic, and we're talking more now about power, electricity, and heat, because that's also another form of energy. So please pause the video, download the PDF, whatever you need to do, but get this in your book. So otherwise, I'll just talk through it. We've got power is the rate that energy is consumed, and we measure power in watts, okay? Not just watts, but these, all that I have here in this little conversion chart, is what power is measured in, okay? We've got milliwatts, watts, kilowatts, megawatts, gigawatts, and terawatts. So obviously you're starting at your smallest being milliwatts and working your way up. The best thing about converting converting power, I should call it, is everything's by 1,000, okay? So there's 1,000 milliwatts in a watt, 1,000 watts in a kilowatt, 1,000 kilowatts in a megawatt, 1,000 megawatts in a gigawatt, 1,000 gigawatt in a terawatt. And I've got the conversion chart for you to go to and from each one there. But basically, if you can just remember the order, so milliwatt, watt, kilowatt, megawatt, gigawatt, terawatt, you'll know, what you need to do in terms of conversion. Just be mindful, in my milliwatt, I have a lowercase m, but in my megawatt, it is an uppercase M, okay? And it's usually quite important to have your prefixes in the right, whether they're capitals or not. So after we look at power, then it goes on to, now electricity. Electricity is energy measured in watts per hour, okay? So power is measured in your watts and kilowatts, but then if we turn it into electricity, now we say, okay, it's how many watts you use per hour, okay? Or more commonly, I've written there, how many kilowatts you use per hour. And kilowatt per hour is written as kWh, okay? Be mindful of that. That means kilowatts per hour. Okay. The last thing, which isn't as common, but just something to know, is heat energy, okay? So it's measured in joules, okay? And to be honest, I never use this ever other than this lesson that I teach it. Not common in HC, but obviously it can come up. So what they say that 1 kilowatt hour is equal to 3.6 megajoules in your heat energy. So if you can just remember that conversion, you should be fine. Okay, so I thought we'd have a go at some questions. It's going to be a bit of a longer video just because I want to go through some of your exercises. But we've got a level 1 question here. If a dishwasher has an energy rating of 305 kilowatt hours per year, how much would it cost to run if the electricity price was that? So the big thing to note with this question is they're both in the same unit, okay, kilowatt hours, which means, and coincidentally, I must have just had the numbers 305 in my head at the time, but that's just a coincidence that the dollar price there and your kilowatt hours per year is the same. So all I'm going to do is say, okay, they're both in the same unit. So if I am running this dishwasher for 305 kilowatt hours and it cost me this much per one of them, it's just going to be a simple multiplication. And that will tell me my price. So I get 93.025. Now again, with money, we usually have money in terms of 2 decimal places. And again, I would always be putting that therefore statement, okay? Just like I have there. Okay, so nice and easy. All right. Level 2, we are practicing just some convertings. So use that chart that I gave you just above and give this a go. Otherwise, we can just go through it together, all right? One thing that I'd always have in any kind of conversion is I like to just have the order. Because if I know that order, all I know is that each one is 1,000 lots of the one before it. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is go, 3 kilowatt hours, how many watts? So I'm going from kilowatts back to watts. And I know by coming back up here, if I need to go from kilowatts to watts, I follow the blue arrow and I'm going to multiply by 1000. All right. So I'm going to write multiplied by 1000. All right. Now the idea is if you're going from a big back to a small, I'm going to multiply. But if I'm going from a small to a big, I divide. All right. So let's look at this next one. I've got 4.2 megawatt hours and I'm going to gigawatts. So I go, okay, well, megawatts are a smaller one and I'm going to a big one. So this time I'm going to divide by 1000. Then I'm going terawatt hours to gigawatt hours. So I'm going from a big back to a smaller one. So I'm going to multiply by 1000. Kilowatt hours to milliwatt hours. Interesting one. I've jumped 2. So I'm going from a big to a smaller one, but I'm jumping twice. So I'm going to have to, big to small, I times by 1000. But then I must times by 1000 again. I do think that this question, just looking at that number, is supposed to be capital M. So I am just going to, just because it's already quite a large number, so sorry about that. If it was a lowercase m, you definitely multiply, but I'm going to change it to a capital M just because the number's big already. So then I'm only going to do it once also. So I'm going kilowatt hours to a megawatt hour. I'm going from a small to a big, so I'm going to divide by 1000. Okay. Now, a quick, easy way, which, I mean, I'm going to assume you already know this, but in case you don't, when you're timesing by 1000, that one's easy. We know that's just going to be 3000. Dividing by 1000, we're just going to jump 1, 2, 3 jumps because there's 3 zeros. So 1, 2, 3. Put my decimal point there. So it's going to be 0.0042. Otherwise, put in your calculator. I'm going this one to times by 1000. Again, the number just seems quite big already, but we're going to do it. Okay, so I've got, and add 3 more zeros. And then this one divide by 1000 gives me 214. All right, what I want to do now is go through some of the questions in the textbook. And the reason I'm doing this is because we don't look at this stuff in the junior high school syllabus at all. So this is really new to you guys, okay? So I think that it can be confusing. So going through some will be a good idea and lead you through this exercise. We do look at these more towards the end of the year. So it is something you do need to know about. So I'm just going to start with 2A. A washing machine has an energy consumption figure of 206 kilowatt hours per year. Okay. So 206 kilowatt hours. So that means that this washing machine, that's how much it's using every year. 206 kilowatt hours. And it's saying, okay, well, what's the cost of running it if it costs 0.2185 of a dollar per kilowatt hour? So this one is a nice straightforward question where I'm just going to multiply. Very similar to the one we just did in our book together. And I get an answer of $45.011. So whether all of those ones, you're just going to multiply your amount. Okay, so you can finish off that one. Question 3, Leo uses an 800 watt microwave oven for a total of 20 hours per week. How much energy does the microwave oven use per week? Well, energy, so it's going to be 800 watts times by 20 because they use that for 20 hours, which gives me an answer of 16,000 watt hours. Okay. So then B says, well, what is the cost of using the microwave oven for a week if the electricity is charged at a rate of that per kilowatt hours? So notice all of a sudden I've left my answer here in watt hours, but they want what it is in kilowatt hours. which means I need to convert. So I say, okay, well, I'm going from watts to kilowatts, so I'm going from a smaller to a bigger, so I'm going to divide. So divide by 1,000 gives me 16 kilowatt hours, okay? And it's charged at 0.2367, which gives me an answer of 3 to 2 decimal places, 0.79. Okay, so always make sure they're in the same unit. So I'll leave you with 4 to do. It is very similar. What else do we have? 5 is also another similar one. Okay, for part A, how many kilowatt hours, you're going to multiply your 1.5 and your 8, and then multiply that by your cost. So these are all quite similar. Let's go down to, okay, let's look at this one. Question 8 here, part A. So we've got the power rating for each different appliance. How much energy is used by the television for 5 hours? So, okay, 300 watts. So it's going to be 300 watts, 5 hours gives me 1,500 watts. Or you could say that that's 1.5 kilowatts. And I would say kilowatt hours because now we've brought into time. So then B, it's going to be the same idea. This one, they've given you minutes, so make sure you convert that to 0.5 hours, and then they want it in watts. Okay, so you're going to multiply it. And keep going. D is an interesting one. Let's look at D together. This one's quite difficult. We've got, for how many hours was the hairdryer used if the cost was $1.95 and the electricity was charged at 26 cents per kilowatt hours? Where now I know that it's 26 cents is 0.26 of a dollar, and I'm converting that because this is already in dollars. So think about what I would do. I'd say, okay, well, let's think about this. My hairdryer uses 600 watts. The first thing I'm going to do is say, well, hang on, this needs kilowatt hours, which is 0.6 of a kilowatt. And I'm going to multiply that by how many hours. I'll just write H, they used it for. And the cost was 0.26 for every hour. And that is equal to $1.95. So what happens now is it becomes a bit like an equation. If I clean this up, sorry, that's just my dog barking. I'm just going to bring it up here. 0.6 multiplying by 0.26 gives me 0.156, which is multiplying by the H. And that's equal to $1.95. So if you're not sure what I just did, I multiplied the 0.6 and the 0.26, and I got 0.156. So I just cleaned that up. Now it's just a one-step equation. I've got some number timed in by H. I want to get H by itself, so I'm going to bring that over and do the opposite of timesing, which is dividing. So you end up with H is 12.5, which means that they used the hairdryer for 12.5 hours. So I'm going to leave it there, and for you to have a go at your level 3. It's going to be a difficult question. Remember, it is a level 3. And you need to remember not to worry if you do find level 3 is quite tough, because they're just there for that extension, all right? So give it a go. Email me if you have any questions or comment below. Or even better would be post in our Teams page, okay? I created that page there for you to post questions in it. And it's like an instant thing. I can get the questions straight away. We can help each other, and everyone can see any questions you have. So please use it. All right, guys, I'll talk to you soon.